being a good Southern boy, I knew that my mom would, crack me in the head if I would have done something like that. But at the end of the day, I didn't have a good reason to say no. And when you don't have a good reason to say no, you're more inclined to say yes.
Welcome to the Hope in Real Life podcast with Jason Gore. Our team is passionate and committed to bringing you more hope in the everyday, real areas of your life. If this conversation and content is valuable for you, please do us a favor. Like, subscribe, and even share. You never know how valuable it could be to share a little bit of hope with someone else. Let's get the conversation started. Hope in Real Life family, welcome to this episode. Just as a heads up, this is a continuation of the previous episode. So if you think you're coming in at the beginning, let me encourage you. Go back, listen to the episode coming into this one. We are talking all about what it's like when we face situations in life where we feel like we've gone too far, we've done too much, and there's just no way to find hope. Let's jump into the conversation with Joshua Broome. I heard you say you felt like you're called to build a boat, and I don't know if you felt like you built a boat yet or not, but I mean, just to hear you talk through those three things of like, man, I'll never be a dad, I'll never be a husband, I'll never be able to contribute, but like here you are now actually being able to speak into what I would say is one of the key components that, whether people want to admit it or not, plays such a significant role in the tearing apart of the fabric of families, of our communities, overall of us experiencing life the way we were created to. And so you've recently written a book, 7 Lies That Will Ruin Your Life. In the title of that book, you talk about how truths set you free. Yeah. And you talked about this a little bit, but I'd love for you just to unpack that book for us just a little bit. And like, what is that truth that will actually set us free?
Yeah, I mean, the answer to that, I would just say 2 Bible verses. It would be Romans 12:2. You're either being conformed by the world or you're being transformed by the renewing of your mind. And why is that important? So you can discern what is God's good, pleasing, and perfect will. So you need to know what God says is most important, which is what is true, so that you can discern what's not. So if you know what's true, you can identify a counterfeit. And then lastly, what is truth? Well, John 14:6, like, Jesus speaking, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Yeah. So that's really what the book is about, where, I believed that, or I listened to the world, because I would say the book is really a conversation about, here is what the world is promising. And I believe that lie to be true. And if you believe a lie to be true, it becomes true to you, and you create a worldview out of it, and you live through the lens of that lie. And what that led me to was destruction, disappointment, death. Every roommate I've ever had outside of one person, dead. I saw, I'm 42 today, and I've been out of that industry for 11 years. 35 people have committed suicide or died of overdose that were in the industry with me. And that's not all the people. These are just people that I knew personally. Wow. So that's the reality that, we're living in. But this world is, the book is about the world promising, here is what purpose is. Here's what your purpose in life: to make the most money, to gather the most influence, to have the house, the truck, the 2.5 kids, the white picket fence, and all that stuff. And if I think, in a way, like, God, he will allow you to experience things to understand that there's nothing in this world that'll satisfy you. I think it's a pretty unique take on, like, Romans 2:4. It's his love, his kindness, his patience that leads us into repentance. In his kindness, he allowed me to experience everything that I thought would satisfy my soul, so that I could understand that it didn't work.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's, the book, it starts with purpose. Here's what the world says about purpose. And I chased that dream. I obtained it. It didn't work. And, 2 Timothy 3:16, like, God's word is good for, teaching, rebuke, reproof. So that's what I needed. I needed correction. I needed to have truth meet lies, and it dismantled and destroyed the ways that I believed. And it gave me solidified a better foundation to stand on. And then the next chapter, they all like coincide, but the next chapter talks about, you saying that I think this would be the most dangerous, saying that Jesus, but it not being the Jesus that is in the Bible.
Yeah.
And, really like talking about like Exodus 32, Moses on the mountain getting the 10 commandments, and Aaron and his misfits are building a golden animal. And it's interesting that in Exodus 32, they call that golden animal Elohim, which, is referring to a God, but then eventually they call him Yahweh, the one who delivered us out of Egypt. It is so interesting to see if you call Jesus and you take your presuppositions and your preferences and you put it in the box in which you're saying Jesus is, that's not Jesus at all. So it's either he is Lord of your life or you are. And there's so many areas of our life where we try to maintain autonomy, where we think we're in control, but if Jesus is not in control, Satan is. And that's like really that theme of the book. But over and over again, so we go through what does the world say about intimacy? What does the world say about forgiveness, cancel culture? And it gets to the point in the book where it's like really a healing journey for me, where it was tough because I'm doing awesome stuff. I feel as if I'm healed, but your sanctification is kind of like an onion being peeled. It's like as I heal or learn one thing, God uncovers something else that I need to deal with. And for me, like seeking to live this like redefining my sexual ethic, growing in purity, like being a husband, being a father, doing all this stuff. And then I'm really wrestling with anger at times, like really like finding myself frustrated and, asking God, like, please show me, search me, Lord, help me identify this. And I had this resentment towards my dad, and it was almost subconscious, but I would often say to myself, Dad, if you would have been there, I wouldn't have done these things. And what's true is we have free will. Yeah. And while his absence definitely, was a catalyst for the way that I saw the world, it was upon my own volition that I did the things that I did. So I was in this weird tension where so many people find themselves in, where if reconciliation is not going to meet my expectations, will I still extend forgiveness? If the relationship is not going to, be back together as it was, or the friendship is not going to be restored, if my dad is not going to be my dad, do I still forgive him? Why would I do that? Well, we forgive because we've been forgiven. We don't forgive because we're trying to control an outcome. And what I realized and what God convicted me of is I was trying to play God.
Wow. Yeah. Josh, I'm not going to let you tell them the whole book because I want them to have to go buy it. So we're going to we'll put the link to the book in the show notes. Man, powerful stuff. You've done a number. I'm going to come back if we have time and just talk for a moment about the damage that addiction can do in marriages and families. But just as we're talking about some of your work right now, you're also involved with a project called Unbound that's getting ready to crank up. Can you talk to us just a little bit about Unbound and how it fits in really maybe the boat that you're a part of building right now?
Yeah. So, I mean, what God has allowed me to do is have a very unique voice into this battle against pornography. And, pornography generates more revenue than the NBA, the NFL, and Major League Baseball all combined. Wow. It is the contributor to 50% of the divorces that happen in America. So it's especially in the age demographic of 18 to 24, Barna just came out with new data. 94% of people who would identify as followers of Jesus who are male, 94% are watching porn once a month. 67% of women 18 to 24 are watching porn once a month. And we know data is only good as people are honest. So we would assume that it's worse. So that being the reality of today and the climate in which we live in, well, how can we, counteract that? How can we provide people with resources that we need? And I've done a lot of partnering with Covenant Eyes. So I actually have a free code. So my last name, Broome, Broome 30, Covenant Eyes, free for a month. You just need an accountability partner. But we partnered with Covenant Eyes, and like essentially Unbound is the resource in which you've listened to. We have a documentary style podcast called Unmentionable that you can listen to anywhere you listen to podcasts, and it's really chronologically tracking the growth of the porn industry from the sexual ethic in Ephesus and Corinth to what is happening today. I'm on the advisory board at the White House for image-based sexual exploitation, and the podcast ends with me speaking there. And so Unbound is, hey, here is a step-by-step process that if first and foremost you submit and surrender your life to Jesus, this is what, not just stopping watching porn, but understanding the purpose in which you're robbing yourself from. Because you know this, we are saved from sin and for His glory. Yep, so if we're not doing the thing in which we were created to do, you're going to feel unsatisfied. So what can I do in a practical way? How can I stop watching this? How can I find healing? And how can I walk in newness? How can I live my life pursuing this renewed version of myself, having a renewed and restored sexual ethic?
Hope in Real Life family, I want to take a moment and let you know about a resource that we have for you for your own personal development, spiritual enrichment, and really a way for you to find a bit more hope in real life. We have a tool for you called the Hope in Real Life app. It offers things like parenting tips, financial resources, marriage insights. If you're looking for it, there's even Bible reading plans in there. And there's a community where you can even share prayer requests and know that someone is praying for you for whatever it is that you have going on in your life. It's available right now in the Apple App Store or in Google Play. You can search Hope in Real Life in both stores, or you can use the download link that is in the show notes. Remember, tomorrow can be better than today, and hope is possible even in real life. So you've got Project Unbound, and just to say it again, you said it very quickly. I want to make sure they don't mention it, but the podcast series is called Unmentionable. You might have just said it really quickly because you don't want to mention it, but that is what it's called, Unmentionable. We're going to make sure that that's down in the show notes as well. Let's do this. You talked about mentors, man. You got some strong names here. And by the way, I haven't heard the name Dr. Jason Davidson in quite some time. I'm going to drop him a text when we finish up. I want to say hello to him.
Doc's the man.
Goodness gracious. You got Jason Davidson, you got Andrew Yates, you got Gary Vett, some strong folks that God has used along the way in your life. Any advice?
I'll never forget. Also, I just want to give a shout out to, so it's like the day after I gave my life to Christ, I called Hope. Before I even went there, I called Hope, and I ended up talking to Sean Sullivan, and Sean Sullivan drove to Fuquay and had lunch with me. That very day, we went to Neil's, where there is the best chicken salad sandwich you'll ever have in your life.
I'll tell you, that does not surprise me one bit. I mean, that's a guy, if there's ever a guy that's going to stop what he's doing at the drop of a hat for somebody else, man, that's Sean's story. Yes, you got some strong names there that clearly God's going all in on making sure that you've got some folks around you that are going to invest in you, and they're not for obvious reason. Like, God had a huge plan for your life. Talk to us for a minute. Like, what would you say to the young person, or really to anyone who is in a place of, man, I feel like I'm right on the edge, or I feel like I'm too far gone? The value of actually getting a mentor, someone in your life to speak truth to you and to call you into what it is that God has for you.
Yeah, so I mean, exactly what you said. Like, you need someone that's willing to, not just encourage you or not just challenge you, to do both. Because sometimes you need that Proverbs 27:6. Like, you need the wounds of a friend. You need someone that's willing to say something that stings a little bit because it needs to be said. Because I know, like, that's always, to this day, Andrew and I, we have a phone call every Friday, and he never butters me up. He always says what's true. And I just appreciate that about him so much. But like, you need someone. It's like, if there's somewhere that you want to go, find someone that is doing something that you want to do, or that's, ahead of you. And I would just say, man, to the people, like, get planted into a local church get plugged in, start serving. Because to the person like with idle hands, like feeling like, man, what am I supposed to do with my life? Well, you're supposed to serve God, and you might not be in the space in which you'll find your calling, but that's the place in which you'll find your calling, because you can't, discover anything if you don't have the opportunity to weed some stuff out. So start serving in the local church, get plugged in, and what you'll find is, man, find the older guy at the coffee shop that's just hanging out because he wants to be there. And every single time, that person is praying for you to find them. He's praying for someone to pour his life into, and it's not going to be an inconvenience. It's going to be the joy of his life to pour into you. Because, that's the reality. Like, that's what the church is for. The church is so we can fill the gaps. So we can, we can lift each other up. Where we're weak, someone else is strong. So if you want to become someone, find someone to lead you somewhere you want to go. And that, you might have a different mentor for different areas of your life, like as you develop, because, for me, there's someone that I talk to about marriage. There's someone that I talk about like leadership in business. There's someone, I have a great friend, JP, that, I send my sermons to, and he rips them apart in the most loving way, but if you want to grow, you've got to be in a place where you're humble, where you're desiring constructive criticism, because we know this as a coach. If I want to get better, I need to be critiqued. And if we are, which we all are, fallen and broken, we have the proclivity to do the things we ought not do. We need people to have our back. We need people to call us out and call us up. And you need someone in your life that will hold you accountable to that. And I would say, lastly, that creates in you an understanding of discipline. Like, the greatest form of self-love is discipline, because you're actually keeping promises to yourself. You're following through with things that you say are important to you. So if your integrity and your work ethic and your willingness to show up every day, like maybe that's not where you want it to be, and find someone in your life that loves you enough to tell you the truth often, and watch your life change.
That's a good word. Hope in Real Life family, I want to pause for a moment and let you know about an opportunity that I believe can help you find a bit more hope in everyday life. Listen, I know a lot of our viewers probably aren't a part of a church, or maybe you gave up on the church a long time ago. And believe me, possibly for good reason. I understand. But I don't want you to miss out on the hope that you can actually experience by journeying alongside of a group of people that really are seeking God's best for their lives. If you are the least bit curious, we try to make this as simple for you as we possibly can. Wherever it is that you digest digital content, podcasts, you can go to the podcast store. You can check it out on YouTube and just search Hope Community Church. You'll be able to find our messages there and check those out. Or if you actually want to tune in during a service time, you can go to gethope.tv at 4:15 or 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or you can tune in at 9:30 or 11:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, that's at gethope.tv. We hope that you'll take a chance with us and experience what it is God has for you in your life. You're going to find practical messages that will help you find hope in the everyday moments of your life. Hope you'll check it out. Okay, so we got some listeners out here that might feel trapped in cycles of sin and cycles of shame. What words would you pass along to them?
Yeah, I would say we're living in a world that is broken. So even the person that you look up to most, they have a laundry list of things that they've done in their life where they've fallen short. Romans 3:23 says we've all sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So with that being true, specifically speaking into like maybe it's pornography, or maybe it's something else. Tell someone. Find someone who loves Jesus and loves you, and say the thing. Because that's why we titled the podcast Unmentionable. Because when you say the thing you have not said out loud, it just takes this weight off of you.
Yeah, it loses its power once you name it.
Yeah, what's just true is we are only as free as we're willing to be honest, and we can only be as healed as we're willing to be honest. So it's like, man, You need to say the thing. So find someone that loves Jesus, that you trust, and say the thing out loud. You need to say the thing out loud, because there's something about processing out loud with people you trust. And maybe you're in that place where you've experienced that forgiveness from 1 John, but you haven't experienced James 5:16. Like you need the prayer of a righteous man or a righteous woman in your life, and you need to say the thing so they can pray over your life, so you can experience healing that you have not experienced. So I would say that first and foremost, like, man, if there's something that's weighing on you that you've never said out loud, if there was something that you've done or something that happened to you, find someone you trust and say it out loud, and watch the guilt and shame melt off of you, and watch freedom, just the freedom that you thought was never possible, enter into your life.
Josh, as I listen to you talk too, so I think that is, you got to name it, and you got to tell somebody. I know from my own journey here, and this isn't necessarily about me, but I've just realized, and you kind of hit on this a little bit at the beginning, but what trauma can actually do to you, and it can elevate longings in your heart that you didn't really know whether they're there. You operate out of them subconsciously, but you don't really know what they're coming from, and you have these feelings. And then oftentimes as guys, we're told like, hey, you're not allowed to feel feelings. And so we just end up doing things without really doing the stop and figure out, hey, where is this coming from? And so there might be somebody out there that just needs to hear, you might need to go and talk to a professional. There are people that are trained, and I know, for me, I'm very fortunate to have a guy by the name of Jeff Vanderstelt, where I can just sit down and share, hey, this is what I'm going on. It's actually, he's had to kind of coach it in me. Like, no, it's not only is it okay, it's mandatory for you to talk about how you feel. Like, what is it that you're feeling? And then from there, let's do some investigating. And again, he's got some training on what do we think it is that could be causing these feelings. But our feelings, man, they lead us to do things that if we don't evaluate them and we just act out of our feelings, then we can find ourselves in a tough spot. And so I would just say, and don't be afraid to go and talk to a professional. There's things going inside of you that have outpourings and outflowings that, unless we can come to terms with what that is, it's hard to know the healing that we actually need. And the only other thing I would highlight in that, man, is, as you hit the nail on the head, we were created to know that we're fully loved. And so we spend our time chasing after these other things that will give us this identity that we actually don't have to earn. We were already born with. We just all have a very similar story to what you talked about at the beginning. I knew I was raised this way, but then I made decisions to live my life this way. But man, the penalty that we have to pay for that's already been paid from Jesus. That's not our burden to carry.
Yeah, I love, just studying, Roman culture, and it just takes like, I think it's Galatians like 4:4-7, but it talks about, adoption. And in Roman culture, adoption was different, where, when you were adopted, you can't change your mind, but you were chosen, and it was intentional. And, the fact that your inheritance, it's not when death happens, it's instantaneous. It's then and there, and you become an heir to all that your father has, and your identity changes. You're given a new heart, a new mind. And for me, and for anyone listening, when your identity is first and foremost a son of the King or a daughter of the King, that changes everything. When you understand who your father when you understand who your father is, it impacts how you live, because it impacts how you see yourself and how you see others. And that's the thing that changed my life, where, I spent my life hoping and wishing that I had a father, or my father lived differently, when I understood that I had a heavenly Father that sent his son into this world to pay the price for my every mistake, that in him I could be a new creation. It changed everything.
Josh, Before we wrap up, I do want to throw one question at you that I try to ask every guest. The name of the podcast, Hope in Real Life. And so just to give us and our listeners one more chance just to hear your heart and kind of what you're about, I'd love to hear, looking out over the next 5 years in your life, what is it that you are most hopeful for?
Yeah, for me, I'm hopeful for the church. I'm hopeful that, it's easy to highlight bad things when they happen, but, as it's been said many times before, no one talks about when a plane lands safely.
That's right. I heard that this morning. I think I was Howerton. I think I saw that. That's right.
Yeah. And it's like there's so much hunger from young adults that that's a demographic that I speak at the most. And it's like I'm speaking at Liberty in 2 weeks, and just like being on campus there, and people just like unprompted, 12,000 people on the lawn, like on their knees, tears on their face, like worshiping King Jesus. There's a hunger in the earth that as dark as things seem, we know how the story ends.
Yeah, that's right.
So for me, I'm excited to see the leaders who are stepping up, the people who have been doing good work for a long time, continuing to do that. And for me, I was at a conference in DC last week, and there's people, as scary as AI might seem, there are smarter people because they're filled with the Spirit. They're smarter people creating AI for the glory of God.
Yep.
So I'm excited to see the technology that's being created and developed to do things like we're getting close to every spoken language, Wyclef and other organizations translating the Bible, utilizing AI to translate the Bible in every spoken language. There's we can use AI where I can share my testimony to in 189 different languages because of one app. Organizations like Messenger International, where they've got Hebrew 6 in I think like 300 different languages because of AI. So I'm hopeful for this generation because number one, we know how the story ends. Yeah. But there are people doing good work in the world. And I think that even in the middle of being in a post-Christian culture in the United States today, I think that God is about to move in a way that, as it always does, exceeds our imaginations. And we're about to see a revival. And I'm excited to see, my kids be a part of it. I'm taking my 6-year-old. I'm lecturing at Summit Ministries, teaching sexual ethic from an apologetic standpoint to teenagers, and I'm bringing my son with me. And the fact that is the story that God has given me today, and I never would have thought in a million years would I get to live the life that I live today. Yeah. And that's not because of me. That's because of what Jesus has done, and that's because of who God is. And that's what leaves me hopeful. And I just can't wait to see what he does next.
Man, that's good. I think every now and then I'll have a deep answer. That was a deep answer, man. That was great. We'll probably edit this next part out. My answer is a lot less deep today. I think when I hear you talking about, hey, AI, my mind goes like, I'm actually hopeful that we're like one step closer to that Terminator 2 Judgment Day zone, because I feel like my family is like built to actually thrive in that type of society. And so my mind went to a completely different place when you went there. But your answer is way better, at least for this episode. Hey, to our listeners, again, Josh Broome, new book, 7 Lies That Will Ruin Your Life, podcast series, Unmentionable, got a new project out called Unbound that is tied in with Covenant Eyes. We'll have all those resources down in the show notes. Check out the book. If you want to follow Josh, how do people keep up with you and the things that you're doing and the things you're talking about?
Yeah, so my social media across the board is I am Joshua Broome, and my website is joshuabroome.me is my website.
Okay, right on. Josh, thank you so much for the time, man. It's great to catch up. It's funny that we've caught up more in this last little bit over podcast than we probably have in the last couple of years. That's a shame. Let's make sure we fix that. Please send my love to Hope and to the kids. And can't wait to have you back on the show soon. Thank you so much for your time, brother.
Absolutely. Always good to see you, bro.
Yep. Talk to you soon. To our listeners, thank you again for tuning in. Listen, if you know someone in your life that feels like they are in a place, or maybe they've gone too far, they're in a place of hopelessness, then take some time and share this episode with them. You never know the impact that you can have by taking just a few seconds to share with somebody else the difference that it can make in their lives to bring a little bit of hope in a place that they desperately need it. Love you guys. Thank you for being a part of this community. Until we see you next time, let's keep sharing hope. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hope in Real Life podcast. If this content was valuable for you, don't forget, like, subscribe, share. You never know how important it could be to bring a little hope into someone else's life. There's even a place here for you to comment. We would love to hear from you and hear your feedback. Until next time, let's keep sharing hope.